Now, today's generation of young tennis players may not have a lot going on up here between the ears, but they sure know how to hit the crap out of a tennis ball. Today, we're going to be looking at the next generation forehand and how it can apply to your own game and how you can do it quickly. Let's begin. I've been a player and a coach of this game for over 15 years, and the concepts that I'm about to show you aren't just theories and good ideas. I've tried both these concepts and their opposites, and I can truly say, as you saw at the beginning of this video, that I now hit what would be considered a clean tennis ball with probably the best possible technique that I could have for myself, and something that would be really desirable for a lot of people. So I want you to know that the things that I'm going to share with you in this video come from personal experience, and I actually know what it's like to, hit the desirable next gen ATP forehand, because I've done it successfully in my own game, and I know you can do it in your game as well. So the first part of the next gen forehand is being able not only to generate power, but deal with people who are hitting fast. So players have had to adapt their setup time by making a unit turn with the shoulders. People who are old school usually send the arm back as an independent part. Even if they make a turn here, they'll have what we call a tail on the forehand. The next gen forehand, we got to take the racket back with our shoulders and keep it in front of our torso until it's time to go. The entire time, the racket is actually staying basically in line with my belly button. And when I go to turn, when I get to here, instead of taking the racket back to get a bigger shoulder turn, I actually need to keep turning my shoulders past the hips. And this is the range of motion that a lot of people miss out on. But we don't just want to get the hips sideways, right? This is where club players get to, right? They still get sideways. It's better than not turning at all. But the people who hit with a lot more power, they get an extra stretch in the torso, which creates a lot more torque and power in the uncoiling phase. So also notice how I take my racket back inverted. You should experiment with this, because what it does is it changes the entire component of the hitting arm structure. It will help keep the elbow up and away from your body and on the outside, which is the position that all the pro players are getting, and that's where the shot needs to fire from as well. The racket being hooded and inverted will keep it in front of the hand, and it will cause your elbow to come up. And all of this will act as a brace for your backswing, which will allow you to not only deal with faster balls by shortening the time it takes to hit, but also you'll get a lot more power and spin as well, which we're going to talk about in the next steps. So you can take the racket back. I recommend keeping your non-hitting hand on the racket throat until the ball bounces. This will just help keep everything together, keep it organized. Of course, not everyone holds on. Some players will just follow very close by. But it's a very good idea to have the racket inverted, okay? Keeping it in front of the hand and having it slightly closed as well. Now, from here, okay, right, the elbow is not tucked in. It's not disappearing behind me. It's got to stay on the outside of the body, and it needs to feel like it does not pass behind the back pocket. Now, once we've coiled and we've set up properly, we want to have level shoulders, okay? I could probably balance a racket on my shoulders. We want to just be stable and have excellent posture when we turn. Now, here's where people get confused. It's like, do I straighten my arm and then pull? Do I just swing? When does the body go? So I'm going to explain to you the proper chain of events. So we actually want to set the hand at the height of the ball to begin with to simplify our swing. So if the ball's high from the ready position, I go up here and then I pull. If the ball's at our waist, it's waist level and then we pull. And if it's low, you get down and you get back up. So if we set our hand at the height of the ball, our job is much easier and we can worry about going through the ball instead of low to high or high to low. Okay, and I'm not a big fan of the low to high forehand either, which we're going to talk about later in the swing. Now, from here, the arm needs to become dead weight. So the racket flip, which everyone desires to get, and the lag, which is a result of the racket going down and back, needs to happen as a consequence of much more important factors. And we are actually not trying to consciously manipulate the arm into looking, aesthetically pleasing. It's going to happen automatically if you take the steps that I'm about to show you. So when you set the hand at the height of the ball, you want to relax. You want to feel like you're losing all tension, and there should be no tension in the wrist. At this point in the swing, the wrist is not active. And we're going to start the swing with the bigger muscles, and we're going to keep the arm still. We're going to keep it where it is. We're going to forget about it, in fact. The arm is going to come along for the ride when we start with the legs. So when you do the turn that we learned in this video, you want to shift your weight to the outside leg, okay? In modern tennis, there's two stances that we hit. We either hit open stance when the ball's faster or we're on the run, there's no time to step in, or we hit neutral stance, okay? So either stance that we choose, we're gonna feel like we're sitting in a chair with the legs. Now, to start the swing, we want the legs to come through, we want the hips to come through, and then the upper body is last. And that is going to cause the flip. The arm needs to be so loose and the body needs to come first. A big mistake that people make, players that are old school, is they uncoil the body and the arm at the same time. But that's not going to lead to any power at all. It's in fact going to cause you to try way harder and really just end up arming the ball, okay? If you can lose tension in the arm and throw the body first, the racket flip will happen as a consequence of pulling the racket from this position. If you start the pull with the racket head in front of your hand and no tension, it's going to happen automatically, and it just has to. You will see for yourself if you try it on court. And that's the easiest way that I could explain this to you, and the easiest way for you to make it happen, but you have to make sure that you set the circumstances in the first place. And I promise you, if you take the correct action steps, you literally just go here with a loose arm, the flip is going to happen by itself. It's going to be a natural consequence. Now, at the contact point, right, we've got so much debate of where to follow through. Is it over the shoulder? Is it under? Now, the reason I tell people to come through and across is because it corrects the entire nature of the impact point. And you want to come underneath the shoulder. If it's good enough for the best players in the world, just take a look at most of the players in the ATP. It's probably good enough for you as well, okay? And I'm not saying that people who finish over their shoulder, right, are doing things wrong, but there's definitely a better way, and it just so happens to be the same way that is used by most of the top players and top juniors. So from here, another common mistake is that the follow through is a result of the lower arm. and the windshield wiper is a flicking of the wrist. Now, if you throw your body first and the racket flips as a consequence, your wrist is going to be back in this slot position. It's just going to naturally happen. But you want to make sure that you don't snap the wrist. It needs to stay back all the way throughout contact point, and not until the ball has left your strings do you want to release that angle. Now, I teach the windshield wiper forehand because that's how we generate massive amounts of topspin, and this is the most popular way to teach the forehand. And you can think of it as Rick Macy calls it, turning a doorknob, or I've told people it's like your entire arm is rotating like a log. So this way you can understand by feeling it. Pretend you're opening a door. It's like this, that it's not just the lower arm that's engaged in making this shot happen. It's basically shoulder rotation. And the lower arm is not an independent part at all. The entire arm needs to come over the top of the ball in the wiper phase of the stroke. Now, you want to have the wiper and then finish underneath. You want the swing to come through and across. A lot of people have the idea that we got to get way under the ball and then swing way up to generate topspin, but that's really not how it's done in the next gen forehand. And this almost religious belief is stopping a lot of people from hitting a clean sounding ball and setting up on time, right? When we swing low to high through the hitting zone, what happens is a lot of people arm the ball and they end up skimming it and giving it a glancing blow. So maybe this extra spin that they're generating, sure, you know, it may have a tick, but there's no pop, and often the ball will actually fall short, and there's not going to be any real penetration through the hit. So you want to set up at the height of the ball and feel like you're swinging across a tabletop, and we go out and away for as long as possible, right? We set up here on the outside. We don't want to set up on the inside because, like I say, if you get in, you're probably not going to get out. A lot of people get stuck here. You go through, across the table as long as you can, wiper, and then you come around and you want to finish underneath that shoulder. Okay, the pro forehand, especially on the ATP, it comes out and away, through, and across the chest. And obviously, use these concepts and experiment with yourself. Okay, don't just believe what I'm saying. You need to go out into the court and do it, and I promise you will be satisfied with the results. In any event, thanks for tuning in. If you like what you learned here, I recommend checking out my online course. You can get it by clicking the link down below. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you guys next time.